Hi, I'm Lola Akindoyin and I'm the head of programme at the Hackney Place Partnership. And I'm really pleased to welcome Josh to Hackney from Active Oxfordshire. I won't say too much by way of introduction, but it's just really good to have the opportunity to have a conversation about all things relating to comparative configurational analysis, CCA, the conditions for change, and yeah, we hope that everyone gets something from it.
Do you ever reflect back with what you have now all the way back to the start of the journey or one of the stops along the journey to see where you thought you were working logics and assumptions correct at that point, or do you ever go that far back to sort of reflect?
Yes, and sometimes it feels sometimes it's quite hard to do that, but also really positive to do it because the journey has by no means been straight and by no means been smooth. But actually, when we use, so we've got a theory of change. So that's the kind of methodology that we use from the outset. But when we go back and look at our theory of change, we have done and responded to the things that we said we would. And the theory of change for us, like I always talk about it as a bit of a route map. Like if it's not helping us to meet the outcomes that are identified in the theory of change, then I'm not sure why we're doing it, unless it's something that's emerged and is really important to then revisit, refine, and kind of build in. But where I think, and I know you and I kind of had a brief chat about this before, is making sure that we are regularly collecting data, like that we are taking that time to build that picture of change, and also a real focus on like good sense making of it, because the picture is really rich. And I just think that there is something, particularly with these conditions, about building an understanding of that maturity and how that builds over time. And almost, if I'd known that now, I would have done things slightly different earlier. But this is about building the maturity, and thinking about why we're working on like maybe more some of the conditions more intensely than others. And the other thing I would say is that also that will change over time. So where we've kind of seen like really like good maturity, and that we wanted, and that we've really kind of worked hard to foster and build that as a kind of collective group of partners, it's also highlighting where the tension therefore is in other conditions that we perhaps didn't feel were as much of a priority like a year, 18 months ago. But now, absolutely, we can see for the next phase of work, we need to work a bit more intently on that or on those conditions, but not dropping the ball on the ones that actually we've nurtured. So there's a bit of kind of like steady maintenance as we build growth in some of the others.
And it sounds like there's something of a shared accountability for the creating the conditions and managing the conditions over time. Is that a fair reflection on what's been happening in Hackney?
I think it's a reflection on where we intend to get to.
Okay.
And where it's happened in part. We're definitely not there yet. And I think it is the reflection of the work that's needed in order to get that whole systems approach. So with these conditions, they have to be shared. There has to be shared accountability. It can't sit with one organisation. It can't sit with one particular team, because actually this is about cross-sector kind of collaboration. It's about kind of the evidence base that within our whole system, but also about the things that need to change within the system, however we're defining that within our local place.
And it seems that through the benefit of the CCA approach is that it can interpret at a regional or national level the complexity that happens day to day from person to person. And I guess there's just an acknowledgement that by using this approach you can have the complexity locally and still make sense of it at a regional or national level and draw some conclusions and draw some learning, which is kind of the benefit of it, I suppose, because we're all working in complexity day in, day out with every interaction we have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is the really exciting thing about it, is that it's something that we can use locally, but then there will be the ability to look across different areas and to be like, well, actually, if you're in an area that has these kind of characteristics, this kind of complexity, this is actually what has worked. or these were the key kind of contributing factors. They were the key ingredients, and you could be in a completely different part of the country. But ultimately, if you have those kind of similarities and you're able to see that in terms of how everything comes together, then actually you sort of build that national picture around what's needed to take this work forward. And the good thing is as well, it doesn't become like almost like something that we do locally. You know, sometimes you have evaluations or sort of particular approaches where you're filling in stuff, you're doing things, but it doesn't mean anything to you locally. You're just doing it over there. This approach, I think, allows all of us to get what we need from it.
Yeah, this certainly has been invaluable for us to compare places that on paper, like Hackney and Banbury, which is a market town in the north of Oxfordshire, on paper completely different places, miles apart, and actually be able to make sense of some and see similarities and see some of the trial and error that we've both been through or will go through over time. So I can see the massive benefit of that, and thank you for sharing so candidly, because you're obviously we're at different stages of that journey.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think like it has been super interesting to hear about some of the approaches you've taken in the past, what you're intending to do next, and also I think some of the challenges that we're both grappling with. So, I think we recognise, like, pragmatically, we're both on this, we're still on this journey. Like, neither of us is sitting here like as experts in this, in this work, but part of the Cycles for Learning and Action, I guess, is also our opportunity to learn together. So I'm hoping we'll come back and have another conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to. It'd be great. Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you.